Ooh, hey folks, Taco here. I am going to do a little branch selection on this, my larger of my willow leaf ficus. I do need to still repot this one, but I certainly need to select branches. It's very congested, and I need to determine what my vision is for what this tree is going to be when it's all said and done. So let's dive in here. It is one that I bought already slightly developed from Me Hands. Here's a little one surround on it. My front is intended to be somewhere around there, I believe, somewhere in that. And the reason for that is because my leader is coming up somewhere in there. This was very leggy, just the way it is now. And I don't believe it was because it was defoliated in this way. I was told to defoliate more so, leaving some green, so when it backbuds, it's got some energy in it. But I find this thing just backbuds no matter what. It is starting to get better ramification. An issue I'm running into constantly is probably the roots. You can see here, but this root is just barely out of vision, but it's very thick. This one was thick, it's cut back, but as I've heard someone say recently, this thing, or these trees, sorry, love to grow thick roots, and that's that. It does not have any coming out the bottom, and it hasn't for a while, so that's good news. But it doesn't mean it doesn't need to be repotted. It still certainly needs repotting to control the root growth. However, for now, I need to figure out branches. It's healing a wound very nicely right here. That was, excuse me, much uglier when I got it. And now I've got several branches coming from that place. I'm okay with that as a sort of broom style, but I want to dive so far into the broom style that I'm sacrificing the form of this tree. So even though I've got a couple coming from the same place, I can accept 3. I think I've got closer to like 6 coming from that spot. So this one being one that I already started developed, I'm happy with it. It's a little long, but I don't need to take any off that because that is purely bifurcating. Even right here, it's 1 into 2. This intersection here. What I need to look at is the ones on this side here, right here. So this one, as much as I would love to say it could be useful one day, it will never be. So first cut, ooh, that was a nice little spin. It's a pretty little branch. And then I've got ones like these that are straight up. Now it's bifurcating here, but it's still straight up. I will cut it off. Well, you know what, as I spoke, I don't need this branch at all. So even though it is a nice little bifurcating branch, it's really close to that intersection, and all I would end up doing is creating issues for myself. So I'll cut that one back. And it already started to clean it up a lot here. Now that same branch, I've got to spin around to this side to give you guys a good view. It does a good job of curving around this way. Because this is a back branch, it's not really the front of the tree, I can kind of do what I want with this. I'm not sure how I feel about this little one, but I'll leave it for now. Because it's not, of course, interfering with anything else. This one here is going straight up, so I will I'm going to cut it back to basically the first little bud here. If it grows in a different direction, great. If not, oh well. The one behind here, it's very weak, but I'm going to take it all the way off because it's grown on the inside of a curve. Now it's got some sap flow, but it tells me this is shooting energy down to the roots, or it's just not very healthy. So I probably need to do this pruning before. It's not really gushing out like I'm used to seeing. Now, underneath that branch, I do have this coming out. Normally I would say I want it, but it's coming from the same place as this, and it's coming from underneath. So I'm not sure I do want that, especially as it's growing up into that branch above it, and the branch above it's kind of going the right direction. So I'm going to take that off. Clean that up a little bit. Just turn it towards me so I can do a little careful pruning in there. Now it's not perfect, but it is certainly better. Got it off, all right. And now looking at that, I've got a spot right here where there was a branch. It was either cut off or a new bud's starting off there. And again, I've got that issue of it going above itself. I'm going to take that. I don't love that intersection. I don't know if you can see here, but it's one above the other, and they're very, very tight together. So I'm going to take off the top one, let this bottom one go. Hopefully, again, I get some back butting on these. But you know what? Yeah, I'll leave this one for now. Hopefully I get some back butting. I can bring it back in, because right now this branch is very wide. I don't need that. So I've got my back branch, I've got my right branch, and now I've got to go into the main trunk. Clearly, I've worked on this before, and it's really got a lot going on. So coming up, my first branch off of that is probably this one. Yeah, that's my first one. And it is kind of an eye poker. So I've got so much branching coming from that spot. I'll take off everything headed to the left and see what it looks like just with these two branches to the right. I don't think it's better. Normally I would say awesome, but it's just not better. I'll cut it back short and see what happens, but I'm not hopeful about that one. Again, I can always take care of it later. Ooh, all right, there goes Uzi being exciting. Hi, bud. It's pouring down rain, so the two of them, Uzi and Nina, are probably a little bit stir crazy. So again, going up that main trunk, I've got this branch over here. It's funny. You know, this crosses back over, so I know I don't want this, even if it could have been great one day. It's not great today. And this one too, around the back. That's probably a better view. So I've got all these branches coming to the same spot. This one too just isn't in the right spot, so we'll take that one off. Then I've got the rest of these. This one's not very strong. Right here. In fact, it's technically coming off of this one. And then I've got these two. I don't want this one because it doesn't flow well. It kind of comes off at a right angle from the trunk. Now I've got just those to kind of deal with. Now if they're nice-ish. It's rather sad to me is I tried to get this as a sort of twin trunk here, but this one just hasn't done a good job. So I'm going to trim that back. I believe I can do it with these. Yeah, I can. It's not very hard wood, this particular Ficus variety, I guess. Oops. Very good. So, although that's not amazing, you know, this is still kind of a fat, you know, bottom of the branch. I can clean that further though. It was alive, but it's just very bulky, very high up in the tree. So it helps a little bit, no? Yeah, it helps a little bit. It's still kind of a thick transition, but you know, as these grow, this grows, maybe it'll just flatten itself out and just be a kind of like this. I'm not a huge fan of it, but as of now, it's in a good spot. Now I've got this branch right here. Can't do anything with it, hasn't branched out. Hold that leaf off of it. Then we come into the kind of crazy part of the tree. So again, these, I know they're long and, oops, sorry, long and leggy. There's not a whole lot of branching in between, but it's because I defoliated it. I'm hoping that by cutting it back, some of the vigor will go into the branches I want, as opposed to going into the branches I don't. Now, all of this is all coming from one whorl here, which is even hard to look at. I don't want anything coming over the top of the tree right now, so I'm going to take all this off. Just eliminate any kind of branches crossing back over. They're also sort of on the inside of a curve. Another thing I just don't want. That helps a little bit to clean it up. And then I've got this one, which is coming sort of up and back. But it's coming from the front, which is bizarre looking. So that's got to come off. Stub here. All right, and now I'm down to 2 trunks, which I'm okay with. This one is coming sort of straight out, but I think because of the transition there, it's not as noticeable as it could be. And then it does seem to bifurcate here and trifurcate here. So I've got 3 branches here. I've got to decide which one I want. So these two, they're not quite parallel, but I don't love the way they're growing. I'm going to go ahead and take this one down right there. See what happens. And then this one here is growing straight up. So I'll cut it back shorter. See what happens. I did not do any kind of bud selection on these ones I cut short. I'm just going to let what happens. And really my goal is to get nice wiggly branches. So it might be hard to look at, but this branch back here, I love the way that's got movement to it. And that's really my goal. So if this one does get any kind of branching off of it, it'll increase that movement without taking away the flow of that branch. And I think it'll really look good. Now these love to just back bud for no reason. So I'm hoping that by doing this, I've helped the tree to kind of go in the right direction. I won't know until, down the road when I either do or don't have really good looking set of new branches that came out. I'm just picking off all the little old stuff that doesn't need to be there. Making sure I don't have scale. I wasn't aware of it. This one's got a kind of crazy scar on top. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I'll have to keep an eye on that. It's not a normal thing to have. I don't know if a branch tore off there or if I'm going to have to worry about pests, but I will spray this tree down with soap and water to make sure. I'm not loving this one here either. Unless I was to choose this as my new leader and kind of adjust that front view. So right now my front's more so here, and this is kind of my leader. I think I'll cut this one short. I'm not in love with it. So if I go ahead and cut it short, maybe I'll get some more of the branching I need. Really, I want nice tight internodes. I want a lot of branching, a lot of movement. If you would imagine all this without the outside, all these branches, it does have decent movement. The longest internode I think I have is right here, and that's okay. I've got some straight sections, but really that's the longest one right here, between there and there. I do have buds here, so maybe that'll activate and I'll get some better branching. Not going to lose sleep over it either way. I think this tree is definitely on its way. It wasn't a very good looking tree when I got it. It was very plain. It was, a stick with just, a couple branches growing in each direction, 3 from a lot of places. And it was just kind of, it had taper, I guess you could say. But it only tapered up to about this point, and this was straight out for a while. So I'm working on all those things slowly. It should be growing a little faster, but I have it in a very small pot. That will probably change when I repot it. But this is just a little training pot. It's got a little hole in it, so maybe it doesn't have enough drainage. Maybe the next time I repot it, it'll have better drainage and it'll grow a little better. But really not upset with this one. It's hard to be upset when the tree is alive, and although I defoliated this, it was really thriving until then. And, it's had a lot of transitions as far as spaces since then. Trying to get a little more of these rough spots off. It does have a lot of buds that it looks like it wants to put out, so just pulling these off with the thumb helps quite a bit. Now this wound is healing very nicely. It's a very ugly wound, but I can see quite well there's scar tissue coming around, so I'm very happy about that. So I'm looking, this isn't a very radial branch. I'm very tempted to get rid of it. I think I'll cut it short. So I'm going to cut it right here. not terribly short in, but it's right before a bud that's headed this way. That time I did make intentional cut there, but not a whole lot off the tree, considering there's not a whole lot to the tree. So as it is now, this is the new ones around. There's some long branches, not all the branches are the best, but really my goal is to bring this back in and not have happen what happened to my ginseng. My ginseng kept cutting it back, and all my branches look like this, and they died off. It wasn't just because the branches were short, but I have to be realistic about my ability to provide a certain level of care. And for branches like this, the level of care that I am able to provide is just not on the level where I can guarantee its survivability. Leaving a branch like this with some green at the end and just hoping for back budding really is better for the tree. It'll help thicken up branches, and I think on the whole it's just going to be safer. Now it does give me a little bit of concern because this didn't have a lot of bleeding going on, but again, I know it's recovering still from being defoliated. I know it's recovering from coming inside. It's nice and warm, which is good. There are a lot of roots that have to be sorted, but I could be running into the issue that my tree here is more root bound. Now this is of course a little farther in development than most of my trees, and that is because it was purchased as a pre-bonsai, or what they sold as a bonsai, but a pre-bonsai. I'm okay with that. I have no problem letting someone else do some work. I think I kind of saved it because it wasn't looking too good. It had been there for a while. I mean, it just never went anywhere, and they actually put it on clearance, I think. So I got it discounted from what they wanted to sell it as. It was in a much larger pot. Right now I've got one of my money trees in that pot. And it may go back into a larger pot again, but for now, because of my space, I put it into this smaller one. Now, I took about as much off the tree as there is left in branches, but of course it looks like a lot because of all the things left behind that I took the tips off. So hopefully this will give it a good chance for survivability. Again, I'm well aware that up top here I've got 3 coming from the same spot. I'm okay with that broom style, having several come from the same spot and kind of just trying to keep everything balanced so there isn't so much of a swell here. But the reality of it is that some trees don't look too bad with 3 branches coming from the same spot. Only if I was to go with a larger number than that, I think I would run into issues. So as this grows, I'll have to make those decisions again. This whole section here may end up coming off. I'm not really keen on the branches coming off this way, and I might replace them with this one if it comes out this way, the correct way. As it is, you know, it's getting there. My favorite branch being this one here, and I'm working, of course, on this, but you know, one day I hope they're all my favorite branches. As of now, they're on their way there. I did leave, you know, in here a little bit of a, you know, longer section in case it wants to die back or it wants to go in the right direction. But the idea is there to avoid any kind of parallel branches here and here. Same sort of thing. These are kind of growing towards each other. When you look at them here, they look like they're growing into each other. So as they back bud, I'll have to direct that movement. This one, of course, I want to direct back in, and this one I want to direct back in. So both of these I would love to have moving a little closer to there, and of course getting movement closer to the trunk. I know most people's willow leaf ficus grows very, very, very quickly and thickens up very, very, very quickly. But I'm not trying to do it too fast. I've got a lot of time ahead of me to work on bonsai. So I'm taking my time and maybe making some mistakes going too slow or not being worried about keeping the tree vigorous enough. But I, you know, get the privilege of doing it that way. I don't have any formal training. What I learned, I probably learned from Reddit as much as I did YouTube. But so far I've been pleased with the skills and practices I've been able to practice and learn. And trees like this kind of give me a little bit of happiness every time I see them, especially when this thing's full. It looks so good. So whether you're doing a good job at bonsai, whether or not you're killing trees, as long as you're enjoying yourself and learning and feeling yourself grow, I think you're doing the right thing for you. Now I will soap this down and rinse it off. I've got one of my Piafras soaking right now, do some pest control on it. Again, pest control is not a one and done thing. When you don't think you've got any more pests, you've still got pests, I can guarantee you. Especially in my experience, I almost always have pests. So I'm soaking that one down now. I'll do this one next. That one I sprayed down twice because I saw invisible pests on it. But many days I'm trying to make sure many of my trees do not have pests on them. Keeping in mind that after they've died, they don't always wash off. So I'm being very careful about that. Sometimes I'm just scraping things off. Sometimes I am spraying it down. And in some cases, I use a neem oil or a plant soap. I can't remember the name of it, but the soap that we can use. Sometimes I even use a fungicidal soap. But really, the goal is to keep the tree alive. Um, in various states of health, of course, all my trees are, but I want to keep them all alive. So if pests are all over them, they're not going to live very well. And it will stunt their growth a lot. So I see there are some like webs on here, which is okay. Sometimes you have little spiders. I did have little spiders when I was on the rooftop. But as I'm inside, I don't find that those spiders thrive. They usually die off, and big problems happen if you allow any kind of webs on there or any kind of insect life at all. So that's it for this one. It was probably longer than it needed to be because I kept talking. And again, that's how I do bonsai. I talk to myself, talk to my animals, talk to the trees. Nothing wrong with that. It's kind of fun. But as this one's over, I'll just have to see you folks in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Cheers.